Trauma-Informed Care for Child Care Providers. This three-part training is designed to help strengthen your work with young children using deeper knowledge of how trauma impacts early childhood growth and development. You will also develop skills that allow you to identify and support children in your environment who may be dealing with trauma or have experienced traumatic events. In this training, you'll explore concepts in a variety of interconnected areas, including the mental health and social and emotional development of young children. Together, we'll look at indicators and benchmarks of healthy social and emotional development, as well as techniques and approaches that foster social and emotional learning in culturally responsive ways. Trauma-informed practice is divided into three parts. You may complete this training at your own pace, stopping and returning as needed. Part 1 of this training is an introduction to infant and early childhood mental health. In Part 1, you'll learn about the role of early childhood mental health in the well-being of children and ways to integrate the skills into your work. Part 2 is a fresh look at infant and early childhood social emotional learning and development. In this part, you'll review many of the concepts and ideas you're already familiar with as child care providers and learn some new things that may prompt new ideas for you. And finally, in Part 3, Infant and Early Childhood Trauma and Adverse Childhood Experiences, we'll learn about stress, trauma, ACEs, and their impacts on infants and young children. Throughout the training, you'll have opportunities to demonstrate what you're learning through quizzes and other activities, view video clips, explore web pages, and work through case scenarios to help build your knowledge and skills, and reflect on your own knowledge and learning through taking notes and short journaling opportunities. Let's begin. Part 1, Introduction to Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health. After participating in Part 1 of this training, you will be able to define infant and early childhood mental health, identify basic concepts and beliefs of infant and early childhood mental health, and identify mental health supports and services available to child care providers. When you think about infant and early childhood mental health, or IECMH, what comes to mind? Click on the box that best completes the sentence on the left, then press Submit. That's correct. Research shows that babies and very young children can experience disruptions in the healthy development of their social and emotional skills. The concept of infant and early childhood mental health is concerned with mitigating these disruptions and creating a safe, warm environment where children can learn the skills they need to flourish socially and emotionally. Infant and early childhood mental health can be a difficult concept to understand. To help, let's start by clarifying what it is not. Infant and early childhood mental health is not about children receiving psychotherapy. It isn't a strategy or a pathway for referring very young children for counseling or therapy either. And in your work as child care providers, infant and early childhood mental health doesn't involve you diagnosing or treating children for mental health concerns. Here's the definition of IECMH again, this time in its full form. Infant and early childhood mental health is a child's healthy developing capacity between the ages of 0 to 5 years old to form close and secure adult and peer relationships, experience, express, and manage a full range of emotions, explore their environment and the larger world around them, and learn, all in the context of family, community, and culture. Because infant and early childhood mental health is the foundation of healthy social and emotional development and helps children become ready and confident lifelong learners, understanding it is key to providing joyful, effective, and high quality early care and education. The next several slides show some helpful key concepts and insights in IECMH. Click on the gold key to continue. Key insight number 1. A child's mental, social, and emotional health is just as important as their physical health. During the first 3 years of life, a baby's brain develops faster than at any other time. The earliest experiences in life are what shape a baby's brain and prepares them for future development and learning. Just as a child's physical growth and development depends on healthy, nourishing conditions created by responsive adults, so does a child's mental growth and development. Key insight number 2. Mental health impacts infant brain growth and development. A new baby depends on their parents and caregivers around them to learn how to navigate the world. Caring and responsive adults provide the experiences and consistent support babies need for healthy brain development. And all early experiences, negative and positive, influence early brain development. Key insight number 3. Mental health impacts a child's ability to focus and maintain interest and curiosity. A child's ability to maintain developmentally appropriate attention by age 5 is a key indicator of their future school engagement. Research shows that a child with at least one safe, secure relationship with a trusted adult will demonstrate interest and take on more initiative in navigating their own environments. Child care providers can help children develop and strengthen their interest and skills at remaining engaged. Key insight number 4. A child's mental health development either supports or impedes their ability to form bonds and nurture relationships with adults and other children. The best learning happens in the context of family, culture, and community. As children grow, their interactions with adults and peers are central to healthy social and emotional development. Children need a sense of security and responsive engagement.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction that infants' minds are magical, because that is truly what I believe. And in introducing me, I want to introduce you to my friend David. Most of you are looking at this screen seeing a beautiful baby boy. But that's not the only thing that I see. What I see is a baby boy who is the product of his family, who is the product of his community, who's a product of his environment and the policies that, as adults, we shape. But what happens when there are disruptions to the system? What happens when there are disruptions to the family or to our communities? Oklahoma is one of the most dangerous states to live in. We rank 40th in child well-being. We have tornadoes. We've had a bombing. All of this affects our smallest people. And when there is insult, that sets a trajectory for that child's life, unless there's an intervention. But what does that trajectory look like without intervention? It looks like the kid who's hitting and kicking and biting in pre-K, and mom and dad are having to take off work. It looks like the adolescent who's not doing well in school and maybe graduates, but certainly doesn't set his or her eye on college. It sets up a trajectory for a person not meeting their full potential. What I have just described for you was monumental in the field of infant mental health, because what it did was it linked early adverse childhood experiences with later poor outcomes. Outcomes that we hear about in the news, that we've heard about in these talks, such as women being incarcerated at alarming rates, such as emphysema and substance abuse. But what I propose to you is a solution, and that's infant mental health. Now, this is not infant mental health. When you guys probably read that in your program, you saw exactly what I'm showing you here today. A baby sitting on a couch with a man with wire-rimmed glasses and graying hair saying, "Tell me how you feel." But that's not what infant mental health is. Infant mental health is helping a family repair disruption. And think about it, we all have relationships that we need to learn how to repair. They happen every day, probably on a small scale, maybe not on a big scale. It's helping that family to provide nurturing, consistent, predictable care to their infant and setting a trajectory of success, of that child reaching their full potential. And it starts in infancy and early childhood. And even though that baby that I showed you on the screen isn't talking, he is communicating. And there is work we can do to support his development. And by supporting this development, we get kids who feel successful in school, because that child who didn't do well in pre-K feels like he can't do well at school ever. But by setting that trajectory, we tell him, yes, you can do well in school. And he believes it and he does it. We create an environment of people who have well-paying jobs with health benefits, so they're able to take care of their health and well-being. And we have people who live long and healthy lives so they can start nurturing and providing that care to the next generation. And so I propose to you that early experiences matter for a lifetime. And I know that every person in this room is going to intervene on the world in some way or another. It is not if, it is when. And what I propose to you is, when you decide to intervene, where would you begin? Are you going to start with problems that are already in existence? Or are you going to start from the beginning and maybe prevent those problems from taking shape? Because the fact of the matter is, research shows us that for every $1 that we spend on early intervention, we save 4 to 7 later on down the road. We save $4 to $7 in special education costs, in prison expenses, in healthcare costs. And so again, I ask, when you decide to intervene, where will you begin? Thank you.
Take the next couple of minutes to jot down what interesting insights you learned from the TED Talk video you just watched. Type your response in the text box provided and then press Submit.